networking and the number of different touch points and where you can position your brand online. It's really a great way to differentiate, and depending on what's right for your company, depends on how fast maybe you get there and how many different places you are. But the most important thing here is that it really is a game of perception. You know, in terms of first impressions and the number of people, obviously, that as they're thinking about career opportunities, or even if they're not directly thinking about them, but they come across information and how that influences what they might be interested in. You know, there's numbers all over the board in terms of what percentage of the population is looking for a job at any given time. I think the majority of people, quite honestly, if they see something that's interesting, they're curious, they're going to check it out. So how do you get people engaged in it? If you can strengthen that brand narrative, it allows you to broaden your talent reach in terms of some of those things we were talking about before around talent adjacencies and being able to cross over into different segments of the market. And then the consistency piece is very important. How do you ensure that there's congruency across every single touch point? If they have a great experience online, but they come in for the interview process and it's horrible, you know, or vice versa, it's really not a great thing. You know, being able to leverage some of the tools that are available within a 21st century world is what's going to really make a difference. Obviously, everything's pretty much interactive today in terms of it being online and what you're able to do and how you're able to leverage different technologies to be able to engage and find people. Some of the tools, and we'll focus more on these last three in terms of social networks, virtual worlds, stealth attractors, but certainly career websites. There was an interesting paper that came out recently, I think through Taleo, and it was surprising to me that there is still not full penetration, even within the Fortune 500 of companies that have career websites. One of the clients I'm currently working with that's doing some branding work with a variety of large companies, some of them multinationals. The recruiting departments don't know how to articulate the brand. There's nowhere for them to go internally or nowhere to go and grab that information and be able to, you know, do something that's going to influence how they present that brand, that employment brand, back out into the community. Certainly referrals, we talked about that. You know, it's interesting to me, Kevin and I differ a little bit on this. I am a big believer in referrals. I think that there's a healthy balance to it, but there really is not today a great referral tool that's on the market. You know, there in the U.S. there was Jobster, there was H3. Apparently we're going to learn about something new, and I was very excited to hear that because there's been some shifts recently. So I think that there's a balance to it, and you have to know how often to tap your network. But it is a great way to be able to communicate and to leverage your network without you know, getting this 500-page forwarded email, right? That the job description is now buried in the bottom of it somehow. This is one of those interesting sites that sort of crosses the boundary between brands and networks, and also one that you might say is somewhat of a stealth attractor. This is from Microsoft. It's called Spoke, and this is a tool that they use to connect with college technical talent around the globe. So as they engage with this talent, what are they doing with that information? You know, they're obviously using this as a way to connect with talent. They're certainly learning from people. They're expanding their own IP. And this is something that Procter & Gamble has done very successfully for quite some time. And it's a way that they are able to not only engage people, but assess the type of talent that they're considering. This is something that's new. This is very interesting. This is from L'Oreal, but the partnership is with Business Week and Google and something called Strategic, who must have come up with this game. They had a double-page ad in Business Week. Not a bad partner to have, Business Week, as an affiliate with you. But this is a game that, again, is designed to engage students and let students work as teams and try and solve business problems. Did anybody do Markstrat when you were in school? It was kind of it was a marketing game, and you had to kind of compete for different things, and it's sort of like that. I think what else is interesting about this is the focus is on manufacturing. So guess what? Somebody finally figured out how to make manufacturing cool and sexy. You know, and I mean, it's one of the hardest things to attract students into, and potentially they've learned out how to do that. Now, this is really new. I've just come across it, and I'm waiting to get some more feedback from a faculty partner who's actually using this with some of their students. So networks, as we kind of transition from this idea of, the corporate website is no longer just the corporate website, but it's how you kind of leverage networks yourself. But then there's also obviously pure networks, and we'll talk about some of those. But it's really just exploded again the last 6 months. My guess is that everybody's here pretty familiar with social networking. Yeah. So this is just kind of a look at what the rise has been. This is from Alexa, looking at how Facebook has just kind of catapulted, obviously, a significant event when they opened up their doors beyond university and opened up to the general public. If we have time, Kevin's got some interesting information and perspective on the different demographics about who's on MySpace and who's on Facebook. I actually was never on MySpace, and somebody finds out you got to do it, and it's like awful. I just don't like it. Yeah, I'm ready to take my profile off. It's a very, very different kind of experience. So some of the social networks, obviously some of the big ones, LinkedIn, MySpace, and Facebook. I'm a big fan of LinkedIn, and it's not as social as most, but I've seen some terrific success in terms of recruitment. They actually have about 50% of their population is from outside of the U.S., and one of the stats they were kind of proud of is that their penetration in the Netherlands is even higher per capita than in the U.S. Well, it's kind of a volume game a little bit, but I thought that was kind of cool to see, and they've got about 1 million people signed up in the U.K. But it's, in terms of the tools that are there, is anybody using a pro account for outreach? If you haven't looked into that, the pro accounts are great. It allows you to reach out directly to talent. So it's anybody that's opted in to receive information about careers. So it's kind of a cool way to tap into people that are, potentially passive because they're not actively searching, but when they set up their profile, they said, yeah, I'll hear about things. Yeah. Well, 80% of people said that they would opt in to hear about opportunities, and as you email those, about 60% respond. So it's a pretty high response rate. The one other thing about LinkedIn I think is kind of cool, unfortunately the technology doesn't easily support this, but I think that there's a great correlation between being able to post a job and tag it to the person who that position will report to. Now, unfortunately, you'd have to log in as that person to be able to do that. So either sitting with them and or walking them through it, or having them give you your ID. But one of the things I think is really cool for talent is that they want to connect with who they're going to work for. They want to know about their background. What have they done? Is this somebody that I'm going to learn from? Is this somebody that I think I can connect with? So if there's a way to tag that job to that person's profile, I think the results tend to go up. This is a kind of a cool website called Innocentive. Anybody heard of that? This is an external network, but I think that there's a lot of implications here in terms of how you could use something like this on your own company network, and it's similar to what we just saw from the Spoke a little bit. This was a consortium of companies within kind of the whole bio-healthcare industry. It was started by Eli Lilly. And basically what they do is they put projects out there and open it up for people to try and solve. And they put sometimes very significant rewards on there. So if you look at this one up on the top, they're looking for an ALS biomarker, and if you can solve that by November of next year, you'll get $1 million. Yes. So it's kind of a cool way, though, again, to redefine, start working on that. It's a cool way to redefine who your talent market is. Again, P&G is a great example of this. I think that they mandate that 35% of kind of new ideas that go into products have to come from outside the company. So as we think about talent today, is that person on your payroll? Are they working with you directly, or is it somebody that kind of contributes in a different way?